All right, following the Orlando shooting, you know, we've seen these images coming across the television screen. We keep hearing about it on the radio, and it might be really difficult for you if you have kids to explain to them what's going on. Maybe they have questions. So we wanted to ask Dr. Lynn Lunceford to come in and talk about it with us. Good morning.
Good morning.
Okay, so even for me as an adult, and I know for a lot of other people that report the news, you know, even as adults and other friends that are even in the news, look at this stuff on television and are completely depressed about it, distraught about it. I couldn't even imagine the young minds.
Right, it's overwhelming for us as adults really to process what's happened and why. We sort of fixate, that's why we watch it so much. We try to figure out, why would someone do this? How does this happen? For children, the questions are much simpler. It's really, can this happen to my mom and dad? That's typically what a child gets worried about, because that's their world, is
or
their
to
mom
me,
and dad.
right?
To me, but not as much to them
Really?
as mom and dad, right? That's their security, so they worry something will happen to their parents.
Okay, so what would this do to a young mind? So just say your kids are watching it, you know, watching it on TV or hearing about it on the radio. What does it do to their brains?
Well, it's interesting because kids go through different developmental stages, and they're impacted by this at different levels depending upon the age. A young child, 4 or younger, doesn't quite get reality versus fantasy. So they'll see something on TV and it could be to them like it's cartoon. You know, it's just something that's not real. The older the child gets, the more real it becomes and the more difficult it is to process. So as parents, one of the things we sometimes think is, I don't want to bring it up because I don't want to stir the pot or tell them something that they don't know. But in today's day and age, kids know. They're either getting it on the internet, they're seeing it on the news, they hear us talking about it, or they hear their friends talking about it.
Right.
So you don't want to avoid the topic. You really want to be able to bring it up with your child and say, you know, such and such is happening on the news. What is your thought about it? Have you heard about it? And some stories are impactful to us, like the terrorism, but other stories are much more impactful to children. Like the big topic I'm hearing about is the child that was killed by the crocodile.
Oh yeah.
Because children hear that, and number one, it's a young child, so they relate to that. And number two, it's at Disneyland, right? This safe, wonderful place. And that's staying with a lot of kids much more so.
Oh, that's interesting. That it makes a lot of sense, though. Okay, so what do you suggest? I mean, you suggest bringing it up to them at dinner time? Like, I mean, what's a good time to do? I mean, when do you even find time to say something like this?
You have to make time. So you also have to know your own style. If you tend to want to avoid things like that, then you have to know that about yourself and decide, I'm going to approach this anyway. If you also tend to be a parent who processes by talking a lot yourself, you've got to know that so you don't overshare with your child.
Right.
This isn't the time for your child to be your therapist. It's really your time to be able to say, did you hear about it? What are your thoughts about it? A young child, you can draw together, you know, draw what you're thinking about it. With an older child, they'll talk more easily, but usually they talk when you're doing something. So driving somewhere, so you're not face to face, or walking, you can go walk the dog. Those are easier times for people
as
to talk.
opposed to like we're sitting down,
yes,
looking at each other, having this serious discussion. That's overwhelming.
It's too much, right?
Okay, now let me just ask: if what parents should be looking for if their kids are there signs that this is impacting their kids? Physical signs, things that they're doing that would say, "Hey, I need to say something to my child."
You bet. With younger children in particular, they're going to be more clingy. So you're going to see that they don't want to leave home. They don't want to leave their parents. So you'll see some of that. With older kids, you might see signs of worry. Maybe a loss of appetite. Maybe they get glued to the TV or the computer like we do because they just can't understand it. So they're trying to make sense of it. With all kids who are struggling with things like this, one of the best things we can do is find a way to give back. So sometimes kids will want to draw a picture to send to the parents. Maybe you want to go to Rady's Children's Hospital and volunteer or take some toys there. So because we can't maybe help kids in Florida, but maybe we can help kids here. And you teach kids that just by giving good into the world, you help everybody.
All right, all good advice. Thank you. Dr. Lynn, always good to see you.
Thank you, Lisa.